In the vast wilderness of Zion National Park, a torn hammock hung silently between low branches, just a few meters from the river. No one heard cries for help. No one knew she was even there. For 12 straight days, Holly Suzanne Courtier, a mother, a woman who once had the world at her feet, was lost in the wild, as if the earth itself had swallowed her whole. When rescuers finally found her, so weak she couldn't stand, reduced to skin and bones, the question wasn't, how did she survive? It was, why did no one realize she was missing in the first place? Holly Suzanne Courtier was born and raised in Los Angeles, a city of double lives. By day, she was a beloved nanny who could make children giggle with just a song. By night, she was a single mother, quietly battling depression and invisible emptiness. In 2020, when the pandemic hit, Holly lost her job. Like millions of others, she was thrown into a kind of limbo nothing in life had prepared her for. No direction, no purpose, just endless, shapeless days at home. But in Holly's mind, a thought began to form. She needed to go, not to escape, to rediscover herself. Zion National Park. She'd seen photos on Instagram, fiery red sandstone cliffs, winding trails that looked like doorways to another world. Out there, she could be alone, and maybe she could begin to heal. Her 19-year-old daughter, Kaylee, said her mom didn't have a solid plan. She just said she wanted some fresh air, just for a few days. And so, on October 6th, 2020, Holly boarded a shuttle bus inside Zion. She got off at the Grotto, a starting point for several risky trails. In her backpack, a hammock, water, and a handwritten journal. No one knows where she went after that. Kaylee waited for a call, a text, but the phone stayed silent. By the second day, she started to worry. By the third, she called the police, but it was already too late. Zion is a natural labyrinth. No map, no cell service, no radio. Holly had vanished into thin air. But here's something few people knew. In the pages of that journal she carried, Holly once wrote, "If I don't come back, please believe I didn't walk away on purpose." Here is the English adaptation of the next part of the script, keeping the tone emotionally grounded, documentary style, and ready for AI narration. Holly Suzanne Courtier left behind almost no trace when she entered Zion National Park that day. No hotel check-in, no return ticket, no social media posts. Just one brief message to her daughter. "I'll be okay. Don't worry." When police began investigating, they faced obstacles from the start. There were no security cameras capturing which direction Holly went after getting off at the Grotto. No one remembered seeing her. Her cell signal disappeared the moment she stepped into the wilderness. Search teams combed through trail after trail, from the famous Angel's Landing to remote, lesser-known paths. But it was hopeless. The endless red rock walls of Zion seemed to have swallowed her whole. Meanwhile, back in Los Angeles, Holly's daughter, Kaylee, launched her own search. She printed hundreds of flyers, created a social media page, reached out to local reporters. But the case didn't make national headlines. No officers on TV, no urgency. Holly wasn't a celebrity. There was no powerful family backing her. She was just an unemployed mother who had slipped through the cracks. Day 5 passed. Then day 10. Authorities in Utah began scaling back the search. The media moved on to other stories. But Kaylee didn't stop. She believed her mom was still alive, somehow. She wrote, "My mom is fragile and strong at the same time. She might feel hopeless, but she can hold on longer than anyone realizes." Then, at noon on October 18th, 12 days after she vanished, a hiker passed through a brushy area near the Virgin River. He spotted something small beneath the leaves. A woman, emaciated, motionless, lying in a tattered hammock. She was too weak to stand, her voice too faint to call out. But when rescuers arrived, she was still alive. Holly was rushed to emergency care. She had lost nearly 18 pounds. Severely dehydrated. Signs of head trauma. Multiple unexplained bruises. For 12 days, she hadn't eaten. Hardly drank anything. Even with the river nearby, she refused to drink the water, afraid of bacteria or toxins from the terrain. A decision that nearly killed her, or maybe saved her. But that was just the beginning. Less than 24 hours after the rescue was announced, social media erupted, not with relief, but with suspicion. Was Holly really lost? Or was it all staged? Some pointed to the GoFundMe her family launched, raising over $10,000 in just a few days. They questioned how someone could survive 12 days with no food, no clean water, and no serious injuries. One headline even asked, survivor or setup? Utah authorities launched an investigation. The Washington County Sheriff's Office reviewed medical records, interviewed rescue workers, and assessed the scene. After several weeks, they reached a conclusion. No evidence of fraud. No signs of a hoax. No crime committed. The case was officially closed. But public opinion wasn't. To some, Holly became a symbol of resilience, a mother who defied the odds and survived by sheer will. To others, she was a reflection of our uncertain times, where pain can be questioned and real stories drowned out by viral doubt. In a rare interview, Kaylee said, "I don't need everyone to believe. I just need my mom to be alive. That's enough." Holly's hammock was eventually taken down. The Virgin River kept flowing, and the red cliffs of Zion stood silent, as if they'd never known a woman once lay there, waiting to be found. Even after Holly was found, unanswered questions continued to spread, quietly, like the forest she vanished into. The first thing that puzzled rescue teams, she was discovered just over a mile from a main trail, well within the initial search radius. So why wasn't she found sooner? And more importantly, why didn't she try to signal for help? Holly had a hammock. A pen. She could have written something on the rocks, tied fabric as a marker, even started a smoke signal. But there was no sign she had tried any of those things. She didn't move. For 12 days, it appeared she stayed in one spot, just steps from the river, just hundreds of feet from the trail. The doctor who examined her after rescue noted she had head trauma, but no broken bones. No major damage to her legs or arms. Physically, she could have moved. Slowly, yes, but she could have. So why lie still for nearly 2 weeks? Fear? Or was it something else? Park rangers later confirmed the place Holly chose for her hammock was low, damp, mosquito-ridden, not a smart survival spot. And yet, her setup was careful, not rushed. She even strung up food away from animals. That detail suggested she wasn't panicked. She had a plan. Then there was the water. Her bottle was nearly full. Reports say Holly didn't drink from the Virgin River, fearing bacteria or toxins. But surviving 12 days without water is almost impossible. Even in shade, the human body can't last more than 4 or 5 days without hydration. So if she didn't drink from the river, where did her water come from? Or did someone bring it to her? These small details began forming a strange picture. A woman walks into the forest without warning, disappears almost within sight of the search teams. And when found, she's both too weak to move and yet eerily composed. Then came a strange clue no one noticed at first. A red fabric strip, nearly 6 feet long, tied around a tree a few yards from Holly's hammock. It wasn't used to hang anything. It wasn't connected to the hammock. It looked like a marker, or maybe a signal, but for what? No one knew. Had someone else been there before? Or with her? Within hours of Holly's rescue hitting the news, the internet split in two. Some people breathed a sigh of relief, grateful she was alive. Others started asking questions, not out of cruelty, but because too many things didn't add up. A top comment on Reddit read, "I've hiked that trail. If you're lying near a river and don't drink water for 12 days, you don't need anyone to hurt you. Nature will do that on its own." It got over 5,000 upvotes in just a few hours. Hiking forums picked apart every detail. Satellite maps were posted, routes reanalyzed. They found Holly had been less than half a kilometer from an old rescue outpost, a maintenance shack with an emergency water tank and radio. Had she walked just a bit north, she would have found a rusted metal door. Inside, supplies that could have saved her. But she didn't go. Rumors spread. Some said Holly faked the ordeal for attention. Others claimed she was hiding from debt. Then came the GoFundMe. Originally set at $10,000, it passed $14,000 in just 3 days. The description read, "For medical bills, trauma therapy, and rebuilding her life." Kind words. But to some, it became fuel for doubt. News stations that had once ignored the story now descended on Kaylee's home. One headline read, "Miracle Survivor or Nature's Hoax?" A blog even leaked Holly's tax records, showing zero income in the previous year. as if to prove she had financial motives. Authorities were forced to respond. The Washington County Sheriff's Office launched a preliminary inquiry. They spoke with Holly directly, interviewed Kaylee, requested medical records from the hospital. There were no charges, no arrests, but enough suspicion to put the entire family under a public microscope. At a press conference, a sheriff's spokesman said, "We're not calling it fraud, but we're also not ruling out unanswered factors." A neutral answer that only fed the fire. In the middle of the backlash, Kaylee wrote a long post on Facebook. "If my mom made this up, she wouldn't have almost died. If she wanted money, no one lies down in the forest for 12 days. My mom doesn't need sympathy. She just needed to survive. But in today's age of doubt, sometimes survival isn't enough." Among the hundreds of comments and conspiracy theories, there was one voice no one noticed until months later. A man named Brian Coslow, a solo hiker from Colorado, had been in Zion the same week Holly went missing. He didn't even know about the case until he got home and saw the news. In a quiet hiking forum, he wrote, "On October 9th, I passed through a remote area about 1.5 miles southwest of the main trail. I thought I heard something, like a whisper, very faint. But when I went back to look, no one was there." He posted it in October, but only when a Reddit user rediscovered the thread months later did anyone pay attention. Brian was contacted for an interview. In a taped segment, he repeated, "At the time, I thought it was the wind. But now, I'm not so sure." Investigators cross-checked the location he described, and it matched almost exactly where Holly had been found. This sparked a new theory. Maybe Holly had tried to make a sound, and maybe someone did hear her, but it wasn't clear enough, not loud enough, and not believed. Brian's story wasn't proof, but it shifted something. Some began to reconsider. Maybe Holly really did want to be found. Maybe she had tried, just at the wrong moment, with the wrong person. Another detail emerged, Holly's phone. By the time she was rescued, it was dead. But a forensic technician found that on October 7th, just one day after she disappeared, her offline map app had briefly pinged GPS. She'd turned her phone on, maybe to find her way, maybe to text. But there was no signal. No messages sent, no calls made. This supported a growing belief. Holly hadn't been unconscious for 12 days, as some suspected. She'd been alert, at least during the early days. She'd tried. She weighed her options. And maybe, at some point, she made a survival choice. Stay and hope for rescue. Or move and risk dying in the wild. There's one more thing, a small, quiet detail that lingers. In the journal found in Holly's backpack, the last page was torn out. The tear was fresh. No one knows what was written there. No one knows when it was removed. And no one asked Holly about it. It could have been a desperate message, a goodbye, or maybe something she never wanted anyone to read. In the internal surveillance footage from Zion National Park, there was a detail few noticed, and at first, no one thought it mattered. On October 6th, 2020, the same day Holly Courtier stepped off the shuttle at the grotto stop, another man appeared, middle-aged, wore a weathered leather jacket, a wide-brimmed hat, carried a plain gray canvas bag with no logo. No one knew who he was. His name wasn't on any trail registration logs, no camping reservations, no missing persons report. He appeared in just a single frame, standing behind Holly about 30 feet away. Minutes later, the camera feed was disrupted. Sun glare blanked out the lens. Police couldn't determine which direction he went. No other cameras captured him again. At first, investigators assumed he was just another hiker. No suspicious behavior. No reason to raise concern. But as questions surrounding Holly began to mount, a Reddit user reviewing the publicly released footage noticed something odd. This man was the only person between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock p.m. whose identity was never confirmed. That raised a troubling possibility. What if Holly wasn't alone? What if someone approached her after she got off the shuttle? A theory began to form, but was quickly dismissed. No evidence, no witnesses, no missing person matching his description. And so, the story stayed framed as personal, perhaps even self-inflicted. But buried in the original case notes was something that had been overlooked. Kaylee, Holly's daughter, had told police early on, "My mom's afraid of strangers." But she once said that during a different hike, a man helped her when she got lost. She called him a kind ghost. At the time, it sounded harmless. But in light of everything else, it raised a quiet, haunting question. Was Holly truly alone? Did someone know she would be there? Or cross her path by chance and change the course of everything? And the strangest part, when police released the footage days later, no one came forward. No one said, "I know him." No one said, "I saw that man in Zion." It was like he never existed. After the man in the shadows gained traction online, members of the hiking community petitioned officials to reopen the case and re-examine the footage, logs, and timelines. But the response from Zion Park and the sheriff's office was short. There is no reason to believe anyone else was involved. No reason or no priority. Independent journalists began asking broader questions, not just about the case, but how it was handled. If Holly had been a young, white social media influencer, would the initial response have looked different? If the unknown man had been homeless, had a criminal record, or was black, would authorities have pursued every frame? A local Utah newspaper published an editorial titled, "If Holly were famous, would this be investigated differently?" No one answered. The online world remained divided. Some blamed the system. Others blamed Holly, saying she chose to disappear without telling anyone. But many pushed back. They argued that a woman in emotional distress should be treated as vulnerable, not suspicious. That she deserved concern, not skepticism. A former park ranger speaking anonymously on a podcast said, "I'm not surprised the footage was ignored. We've overlooked a lot. Not because we didn't see it, but because we didn't think it was important." That quote echoed through the community like a quiet slap. It wasn't a lack of evidence. It was a choice not to investigate. The bigger question began to surface. Did Holly's case, with all its strange gaps, contradictions, and blind spots, ever really stand a chance of being fully understood? Or was it quietly closed because of who she was and because he was no one? A social justice advocate once said, "Justice isn't about the outcome. It's about whether you get to ask the questions and whether someone is willing to listen." Holly never got that chance. No one asked about the torn journal page. No one tracked the man in the shadows. And when Holly tried to explain what happened, the little she was ready to share, it felt like people were listening just to catch her in a lie, not to understand. Maybe, from the very beginning, what she needed wasn't a rescue. She needed someone to believe that her story, strange, imperfect, was still worth being told. Nearly 6 months after Holly was found, her story still hadn't faded. But it was no longer the tale of a miraculous survivor. It had become something else entirely. A debate. About truth. About memory. About belief. And about whether someone deserves to survive without being interrogated to the end of themselves. In a rare interview with a small news station in California, Holly sat facing the camera, her eyes quiet, her hair longer, her skin still pale, like someone who hadn't seen the sun in a while. The interviewer asked, "Is there anything you wish people understood better?" Holly hesitated. Then she said, "I wasn't sure I wanted to live." That answer, raw and unfiltered, sparked yet another wave of suspicion. Some saw it as an indirect admission. Maybe she chose to disappear. Others felt heartbreak for a mother, a woman, who had carried something no one could truly see. But the truth is, since the day she was found, Holly had never told the full story of those 12 days. No journal, no clear timeline, just scattered fragments. I heard insects. I dreamed my daughter was waking me. I don't remember how long I was there. Her therapist, in a letter to Holly's attorney, wrote, "She exhibits clear signs of severe psychological trauma. Memory fragmentation in such cases is not uncommon." But the public had no patience for uncertainty. People wanted clarity, a beginning, middle, and end, like a movie. And when it didn't come that way, they turned away. A small team of investigative journalists tried one last time. They reviewed the original footage, search records, GPS signal logs. They discovered something strange. On October 8th, 2 days after Holly vanished, a brief signal appeared nearly 3 miles from where she was found. A remote hilltop, no trail access. No one checked it at the time, because by then, search teams had shifted focus back toward the Virgin River. The signal lasted only a few minutes, then vanished. Had Holly moved, then returned to the riverbank? Or had someone else been there? No one knows. And the more questions people asked, the further the truth seemed to drift. Even Kaylee, her daughter, stopped speaking to the press. In her final social media post, she wrote, "I don't need the world to understand my mom. I just need her to be alive. But even I don't know if she's fully come back." That sentence, like a small crack, split the story in two. From there, no one was sure of anything anymore. Maybe Holly got lost. Maybe she sought peace. Maybe she met someone. Maybe she didn't. Maybe all the theories were wrong. Or maybe every one of them held a sliver of truth, just in different places. When the truth breaks into pieces, all that's left is belief. And when belief begins to fracture, only one thing remains: a woman, alone, in the vast wilderness. And no one truly knows what happened out there. Some missing person cases keep people awake at night out of fear. But the case of Holly Courtier kept people awake for a different reason, because they didn't know what or who to believe. After all official investigations were closed, and after every internet theory faded into silence, Holly returned to her normal life. Or at least, she tried to. She didn't go public. She didn't write a book. She didn't sign a TV deal. She simply vanished from the media, as if she'd never been there at all. In one rare moment, a reporter spotted her in a grocery store parking lot. She smiled softly and said only, "I'm okay, nothing more," then walked away. Kaylee moved out of California, starting over in another state. The Bring Holly Home social media page was taken down. The GoFundMe campaign stopped accepting donations. It was as if everything dissolved, like the disappearance had never been a story, just a passing moment in the churn of the world. But for those who followed it, something still lingered. Not an answer, but a feeling of something unfinished, like a dream you wake from too soon, like a sentence left hanging in the air. Because Holly wasn't just a woman lost in the wilderness. She became a symbol for anyone who's ever run from the noise, for anyone who's longed for a quiet corner of the world, for anyone who's wished, even briefly, to disappear. And when they return, they realize the world isn't the same anymore, and neither are they. Maybe Holly truly got lost. Maybe she was testing a limit. Maybe she met someone. Maybe she didn't. But in the end, the haunting part isn't what happened. It's this: if it were you, lying in the forest, waiting to be found, would anyone come? Sometimes, what makes a story unsettling isn't that it lacks an ending. It's that we're not sure whether to believe it at all. Holly Courtier survived. That much is undeniable. But the question still circles quietly. Was she truly lost? Or was she running from something no one else could see? Do you believe her? Do you believe that there are dark corners of the mind no rescue light can reach? That some disappearances aren't meant to be solved, but simply left in silence? If you've ever had a day so heavy you wished you could vanish, then maybe you understand. And if this story leaves you confused, that's okay, because sometimes not having an answer is part of the truth.